Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it may be. We are here, Rev Neusom and myself, to have some juicy dialogue.
So get your napkin ready and let's begin. We're going to talk about the idea of the Sabbath. And our thought is that this time in our history, this time in our lives right now, when we are forced into social distancing and staying at home, it is a government-imposed Sabbath. It turns out that the Sabbath is an old idea, a very old idea. It comes out of the Jewish tradition. And one of the 10 Commandments, which is to keep the Sabbath holy, which means to not work during that day and to surrender your own ideas about what you should be doing and let the divine do all that is to be done that day and to rest on the Lord.
As I'm hearing you, Newsom, this is the idea that is coming to mind. 3 action things that or some of them are not as much action, but it's about doing, having, and being. And it almost feels that as a community and as the world, there's been a lot of emphasis on doing to have, doing to have, doing to have, and maybe whenever I will be, right? And it's like we are called to say, put that being first, right? Because there's not as much to do and we cannot have as much because, right? We just don't need to maybe put all this effort into having because there's not many places that are open, right? So it's almost like we are being called to being, and that's where the Sabbath concept comes, right?
Yeah.
We drop everything just to be.
And to reconnect with something that is spiritual or something deeper, perhaps to recognize the value of family more, perhaps to just relax the body and let it recover. But it's a brilliant idea. I don't know if you know this, but the reason we have a 5-day work week is because the Christians took Sunday as their Sabbath day, which had been the original first day of the week.
Right.
They took it because that was the day that Jesus rises from the dead.
Right, that's right.
Jewish business people knew that most of their people were Christians, so they gave them Sunday off. But because they were Jewish, they also took Saturday off. And so that's how we started to have a 5-day work week rather than a 6-day work week.
You see, you always teach me something, Newsom.
So
I'm impressed, aren't you?
But one of the things in paying some attention to what the foundation of the Sabbath is, there was a phrase in, I think it's Leviticus, that says, on the Sabbath you deny yourself. And it's a curious way of talking for us today, to not deny yourself. But it might be better said, get over yourself. And get over your plans, get over your ideas of what you have to do, what it is that constitutes making you special and important, and stop. Just stop doing all that and just see what emerges from it. And so that deny yourself shows up again in Jesus when he's asking what do you do to attain eternal life, right? Which may not have meant a heaven. It might have meant the awakened state. What do you do to do that? Part of it is you deny yourself and pick up and follow him. Pick up your cross. You die daily, deny yourself, and then you become, you do your work, and then you imitate or follow the ways of Jesus. But this denying is part of it. Stop being the author of everything in your life and let Spirit have its authorship in your actions.
And that's why, and we were talking about it before, that having that non-doing time and bringing the awareness of the divine as us, it's really saying, I'm not in full control and not necessarily because of all my doing, I will get to prosper, right?
Yeah.
And I was sharing with you how in my former life, I would see Hasidic Jews spend thousands of dollars on a trade show in Las Vegas and just staying closed on Saturday and knowing that their trade show experience will probably be just as productive, but they would honor that time. It's almost like saying we welcome the presence. It's not necessarily us doing the business, it's us and the presence, co-creating life.
Yeah. I have a parallel story with a friend of mine who was a financial planner, and he did very well as a financial planner for other people. But one of the things he always learned was when he went out of town, it seemed like he made the most money. So by the time he was in his 50s, he was taking off about 1 in 6 weeks to go do something really fun and adventurous. And he always came back with a better attitude, I'm sure, because he just had an adventure or vacation or something. But somehow the more business transacted because he was leaving town.
Yeah, I get it. And as I'm hearing you, Neusom, this is one of the things that I have really learned from you. Remember that I had 20-something years of a very intense business career in a cutthroat industry like consumer electronics. And it's like, do, push, push, push. And I brought that way of life or perspective somehow that, yes, I would invite God into the formula, but, I have to be in control. I have to do it. Keep going, keep pushing. And then I find somebody like you who has accomplished so much more than many, and I'm saying this with humility, with many unity ministers who work, go. And then I find Neusom Holmes just saying, oh, it's going to be okay. Just trust. And then seeing, and that has really balanced me, Neusom. So I appreciate that, because then it's like, again, going to what we were saying before, balancing the doing, the having with the being. And you have taught me that. So I want to race.
Yeah, so do I, as a matter of fact. So I guess we're on the same page for that. But I just want to say, Anna, part of it is, it plays into the Sabbath, but not completely. Part of it is the beauty of a church. When a church is working well, is a place where everybody can contribute their gifts.
Right.
And I've found that the more you allow people to give their gifts, the happier they are there, and the longer they stay, the more it means to them. Yeah. They begin to own it. So if you're doing everything, you can't have the help from other people because you've excluded them from the process. So that's part of that's the way I've thought of it. But I do believe that my mother was a perfect example of someone who did not feel like she had to work all the time. And I remember as a kid, my father actually felt like he did have to work all the time. So maybe that's how it worked out. Mm-hmm. But
that's where you kept the balance, right?
Yeah,
as a family.
And so, there was a time when I was here all the time, it seemed like, I didn't have a life, and I was happy that I had this
because
place.
It was the time for that. But even think about right now, we're here in this beautiful sanctuary, and I remember the moment when you were told you need to raise $1 million. And I know that you were like, but beyond you had that conviction or feeling that somehow you just needed to allow the process and trust it.
Right.
And that comes from, I would say, from not being so immersed into the everyday and just staying present to a higher space. You have taught me that. I'm seeing that.
Well, thank you. I think what it's really important, this phrase that that we hear sometimes, at least in churches, it's not I that do it, but the Christ within that does the work. This idea that on a scale of this magnitude of a church with a building that's this much, I didn't have the money, personally. I couldn't guarantee the loan. The idea is that it's not just a person, it's not just me, it's certainly the collective, which is, some people say, is an expression of the divine. The collective is our best description of the divine. I'm not sure about that, but I do want to say that the Christ within the community did the work. And we raised more money than we thought we were going to get. I think we were first shooting for like $650,000, and we ended up with like $1,050,000. And I think the community also stepped up, felt the call, and they made it work. And so people gave according to their ability. And that's what made it happen. We're kind of off the Sabbath a little bit, but I think part of the reason we can learn to trust is that we trust people to be their best. And others to be their best, then you have the possibility, especially in a community like this, of doing great things.
But we could say not to walk away from the Sabbath. It's almost like a Sabbath attitude.
Right.
It's a Sabbath attitude, and I think that's like our core message to our people today who might be wondering what's going to be next in terms of work or lifestyles or whatever. We just need to just trust as we keep those open spaces during our everyday experience or our weekly experience for the divine, just to allow, because in moments like that is where anything can be shifted, and if we get out of the way, essentially. And that's what I'm learning from myself, that this period, it's just bringing all this creativity forward.
Yeah, so I know we were about out of time, but I just want to say a few things to those of us.
You see how I inspire the minister? Okay, go.
Those of us who are hurting at this moment. For those of you who are out of work, let's say, sometimes it's really hard to enjoy the time you have out of work because you're out of work and now you feel like you should be doing something to get work, and there's a sense of anxiety. And then you get the job and you go, I wish I had some time off because now I'm working all the time. And it could be really great if we could learn how to enjoy the season we're in. In the winter, to enjoy the winter, right. In the summer. And so many of us are in a winter experience right now where the income is either stopped or is greatly diminished, or something is not the way it was. I heard a friend of mine say, the great thing about this coronavirus is it obliterates all personal failure. And I was just thinking, okay, so there it is. You are in the place where you are. Do the work that you need to do, but do not carry anxiety with it, because think of it as a gift to be on the Sabbath.
Exactly, and it's like what Ram Dass would say, be here now, and it's part of our spiritual evolution process in which we learn to be present to what is.
Right, and this too will change. And when it changes, perhaps you'll be so busy you won't know what to do, and you'll go, I really could use a Sabbath. You got one now. So our recommendation for this week is to consider each of these days where we're not as active as we used to be as a time of restoration, as a time of deepening, or as a time of becoming rather than doing, or being instead of achieving. And I love the idea that right at this moment, there are a lot of things I can't do that I used to do. Great. How about that? It obliterates my failure for not doing it. I'm done.
And just to have a closing statement, as Neusom was saying, and as we shift our perception of this process and bringing another perspective. It's almost like we're sanctifying the process. We're making it sacred. Mm-hmm. And once we bring the element of sacredness into anything, it can really transform you forever. And we hope that for you.
Yeah, may this be a blessed day.
And so it is.
And so it is. And
Amen.
Isn't there something you want to tell people?
No, I'm done. Oh, yes, thank you. Subscribe. This is the way you're going to keep getting good dialogues like this. And thank you so much for listening and for being here now.
Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday.